It's another episode of the AC Show podcast. My name is Andrew Christopher, and this show is sponsored by an amazing woman who would like to forego her sponsorship this week to encourage all of you to shop local. She wanted me to just talk to you guys about spending your money at small businesses around this time especially, instead of supporting Amazon or whoever the hell else does that stuff. Shop local. Go support small businesses because they need our help to get through times like this. So take a look around your community, find some hidden gems, because wouldn't it be cool to give and to receive something truly unique from your community instead of something anybody can just go buy from big corporate online shops? So thank you, Mystery Woman, for that special shout out for people to shop local. This podcast is also sponsored by the Russell Brewing Company. They've just released their winter lineup of beers featuring a chocolate hazelnut stout and also the Naughty But Spiced Porter. You can order it online at russellbeer.com and they will deliver to your doorstep if you live within Whistler to Chilliwack.
She said, hello, I'm a monster too. What poisons me is what poisons you.
This song you're hearing is Beggar in the Morning by the Bar Brothers, and this was my guest's choice for if someone had never heard music before, what song would you show them? Her name is Christie Lucia, and she's been a dedicated student and teacher of yoga for over 15 years. She will not let me call her an expert, and that just further proves the type of woman she is. She likes to describe herself as a dedicated student. I know Christie through her brother Dylan, who I've played music with for over 10 years now, and so I've known Christie for about the same amount of time. She's an awesome person, she's been a great friend, so I know you guys will enjoy this episode. Please share it around, subscribe, and rate it for me.
It's the Andrew Christopher Show. With Andrew Christopher, your host. It's the Andrew Christopher Show. But really we call it the AC Show. Yeah, we really call it the AC Show. Really call it the AC Show. It's the AC Show. It's the AC Show with AC, your host. Check it out.
Well, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the AC Show. Welcome to my guest, Christie Waitman. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you, Andrew?
I'm doing great. We just had an amazing 10-minute meditation, and so we're feeling nice and calm and clear-headed. We'll talk about that in a bit. I thought it's interesting to point out that this is another take two of an episode that I've recently done. This one was a bit more of a computer error, whereas the last episode I did with Jamie, we had to do a take two as well, because the first one just got a bit heated, emotional, personal, maybe things that shouldn't have been on the podcast. So we redid that one. But this one, oddly enough, something happened with the computer between updates and stuff. And so I'm very thankful you agreed to come back and do this again.
Of course.
I'm standing firm that it was not really anything my fault. The freaking computer updated and GarageBand didn't update. And then we recorded and I could hear it. It was all good. Tried saving it. It wouldn't save. And so eventually had to restart the computer. Then GarageBand updated. And because it updated, the previous file wouldn't load, blah, blah, blah.
Wah, wah.
Wah, wah. And I saw you at the river the next day before I knew that we had lost everything. I was just starting my run. You were just finishing, I think.
Yeah.
And, just a quick hi. We continued on. We were both in the zone.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then you texted me saying you were kind of running through the episode in your head and, maybe there was a few names or a few phrases or words you were like, I probably shouldn't have explained it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so you were feeling a bit off about that. And so I said, we'll figure it out. If I got to take it out, I will. funny that you messaged me, and I replied saying, hey, I feel like just for future reference, would you have been comfortable if I tried digging a bit deeper into some of these subjects, and just for like future guests? Because I kind of feel that way sometimes, that when I feel things are getting emotional or whatever, which usually leads to the best questions and the best talking points, I kind of back off a bit. It's something I'm trying to get a bit more in tune with. And so after those messages where we're like, oh, yeah, could have been a bit different, I guess.
Yeah.
I got home to realize that everything was gone or that it wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
So kind of maybe a sign from the universe that, well, let's just do it again.
Well, and I kind of thought of it that way as well. When you said that, I was like, oh, well, either it was terrible and he's just telling me that it's gone to do this again, or it's just, the universe saying there's more you could have said, or, I don't know.
Yeah, so. That's funny. And I will show you. I'll try and open up the file right now, and
it's
you'll
okay.
see it's not there.
I believe you. I believe you. But I did have that moment where I was like, is he just saying that? And it was just awful.
No, definitely not. I loved it. And I told your brother that. I told Jamie that. I was like, but, when that happened, when I saw that, I barely had a moment of, are you fucking kidding me? Like freaking out like that. Oddly enough, it barely happened. It was more something clicked and I was like, I guess we're going to have to do it again. And no doubt in my mind, it's because, well, that morning I took the time to go outside and stretch, clear my head a bit. And the day before that, when we recorded, I had done a bit of a meditation. And I mean, that's what it's all about, right? Mm-hmm. Is creating space so that you don't react so negatively to things that affect you, or you don't let things affect you that are out of your control.
Yeah.
That's
what we did talk about.
Yeah. And then the next day I had to put it into practice, and it worked.
Good.
So yes, we're here to do this again. And we just did this meditation. I said, well, I'm running out of time this morning. I wanted to meditate before you got here just to clear my head a bit. And then you were coming and I was like, oh, but Christie's like an expert meditator, teacher, yogi. You probably don't refer to yourself as an expert, but
no.
You are gifted in leading these kind of things and teaching.
Well, thank you.
And it seems you're gifted in practicing them yourself. So it was very fitting that you were coming, and I was like, oh, perfect. We'll do it. And how was it? How did I do?
Well, fine. How did I do?
You did great.
I would like to clarify that I consider myself, if anything, a dedicated student,
right,
and not an expert on anything.
Okay.
Anything.
Yeah. And so is that part of yoga? Would you feel like, is that a common theme for yogis to,
I think,
never classify themselves as,
well, I don't know.
You're always learning, always growing.
Yeah. And I think it's just remaining as humble as possible.
Yeah.
And recognizing that we don't know anything, like we're always learning, and yes, we know things, but it's just remaining humble that what we know isn't the only way of knowing something.
Yeah, totally. It's a big world. It's a big universe.
There are experts on things, but I'm not one of them.
Yeah. But you did a great job.
Well, thank you.
The first thing I cheated with was, because we're sitting in kind of these comfy-ish chairs. You're good at cross your legs, sit up straight. I'm just trying to relax. And one of the first guiding points was to kind of straighten your back, sit up straight. And for me, I'm like, I can't really get into there. And sometimes I lie down a lot of the time when I do my meditation. But so where is it important to kind of engage those muscles? You said to keep you alert. Mm-hmm. Now, does that just mean so you don't fall asleep?
That's part of it. I mean, it depends. That's usually my answer for things, is because it does. It always depends on something or many somethings. Sitting upright, mostly it's alertness, not just mental alertness, but physical alertness. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because I have a hard time. Like if I was going to sit on the floor to try and meditate, cross my legs and try and sit, like it would be pretty tough.
And it is so for like most people.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the nature of, for most of us, our lifestyles is sitting in chairs, or sitting in the car, right? Our hips are not prepared to sit cross-legged for long periods of time. And that's, a lot of where the concept of hatha yoga comes from, is preparing the body to be able to sit for extended periods of time, comfortably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's where the physical side of yoga comes in to get you ready for that. And so would you suggest, should I do it anyway, even if it's uncomfortable and I've got to kind of not fight to stay in that position, but I'll be thinking a lot more about my muscles and moving around to be comfortable enough to sit there. Does that takes away from the meditation?
Yeah, because if you're uncomfortable, you're agitated. Your mind is agitated, so there's no way you're going to be able to, find mental space.
Yeah.
So it's, at the end of the day, I think meditation is beneficial to anyone, and you don't have to be able to sit a certain way to be meditating. Like my mom, she can't either, because she's a longtime runner. Like we're talking, I don't know, probably going on 40 years or something like that. Sorry, Mom, if I've just aged you.
Well, she's 41, so yeah, it makes sense.
But she has to lie down to do it. Otherwise, it's like murder on her knees. And people who have stuff going on in their hips, I'll recommend, and other teachers and books will recommend, sit in a chair, but sit forward of the chair so you can work on strengthening those postural muscles.
Yeah.
But by no means should you force yourself to sit in some way that's uncomfortable and just going to agitate you.
No.
There's no benefit in that.
And so it's more that you could, if you want to, you could do the work before in regards to stretching and strengthening those muscles so that you can meditate in this.
Totally. Or I think, stay with, the posture. Just the upright spine is the key part.
Yeah.
Just doing that for, as long as you can, if that's something that is important to you, and then readjust to a position that becomes more comfortable, and then you're able to get out of your head about it.
So I asked Jamie to meditate with us. But Jamie was not here for the meditation, and she disappeared. I think she ran away. She was almost there because she can't. She's one of the people who can't meditate. That's her mindset. Yeah. Because her mind is too always on the go, always thinking about what needs to be done or what she did or what's happened, and so she struggles that way big time. So I almost had her. And I was like, well, yeah, we might just go sit downstairs. And she's like, I can't go downstairs and meditate. It's gross down there. She doesn't like how I've set the place up. So she said, maybe if you guys were upstairs. And I was like, okay, we can do it upstairs. And she was like, okay, maybe. And then you showed up and she was nowhere to be found. And it's a big house. I texted her, but she wasn't there. So what about the people who can't meditate?
Well, I would argue that everybody can meditate.
Yes. Good first point.
I think the biggest thing is like anything, you have to be open to it. And if you're not open to it, then
it's going to be really hard.
Yeah,
frustrating
exactly.
To sit there in silence.
Openness is the key
to
unlocking your ability to meditate or do anything else.
That is probably a good place just to leave that. But so let's talk about why we should meditate, or why we should be open to meditation. What are some of the main benefits that are talked about?
Well, the ones that I know of and that resonate with me are greater peace of mind throughout the duration of your day. And so when there's any sort of little hiccup or upset that could arise, you're less affected by it. Mm-hmm. There have been many studies done on meditation in recent years. And by recent years, I mean over the course of the past 30 plus years, let's say, if not longer or shorter, that meditation increases the gray matter in the brain, and we want more of that. And I think in my mind, in my theories, my self theories, I think that we've come away from that just by way of being so overstimulated technologically. So yeah, meditation just helps increase that gray matter in the brain so that we are less affected by, any upsets in the day. So that's a really big reason why I feel like everybody should consider meditation. I think one of the big barriers is that it's seen as this very mystical practice, and that scares people away. And so it's call it something else if you need to, you just sit for a period of time just to be. I don't know, but that's scary for people too in and of itself. So
yeah, I can see that, and I would think a lot of the benefits are very personal. I think there's some very commonly shared benefits, but then the kind of way you word it is very different probably from other people and stuff.
Yeah, totally. One of the other benefits of it is that it regulates your nervous system. And like I said earlier, we're such an overstimulated population that our nervous systems are so out of whack. And you look at, I might say, epidemic of anxiety that children are experiencing, and even ourselves at our age, you and me. There's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of depression, and what meditation can do is just help bring those levels down in your nervous system so that, again, you're less reactive to things and you can be more responsive in a calm, maybe even pragmatic way.
Yeah, and just like I was talking about losing this whole conversation with you, I definitely feel that after just meditating once the day before, and then maybe stretching a bit outside, which, I think you can consider a form of meditation. It's nice and
Absolutely.
quiet, doing your thing out there. And I see those kind of benefits when I do find the time to do it. So I always try and put that time to use. And I think another thing a lot of people, my wife included, would say is that they don't have the time, and I always push back on for sure. I'm like, you do have the time, you make the time, this room doesn't need to be painted. What should the priority be here? This room getting...
Or the painting of the room is also a very meditative practice. She did
say this to me, actually. Yes, a bad example.
Not a bad example.
And for me, I did turn around and said, yeah, that is probably very meditative. You're not thinking about anything else because you have to kind of concentrate on making sure you're painting the right spots, and it's kind of repetitive. I don't know if is that part of it?
Absolutely.
That helps it
I think
be so meditative. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is good. Okay, if you want to keep painting, do that, Jamie, as long as you're enjoying it and try and concentrate on the painting. But there
was something you said just before you went into that with the painting, which I find meditative. Not that I paint a lot of walls, but when I have and when I do, I enjoy it. Is that meditation doesn't have to look like the picture that first comes to mind, which is somebody sitting cross-legged, upright, and they're really enjoying the moment. It can be you jog, I jog. That is a meditation in and of itself. Golfing, like Dylan always says, golf is such a yoga practice. It's such a meditation practice. And absolutely, anything you put, all of your attention into for a period of time, I would argue that is meditation.
Yeah. Good. Okay, Jamie, keep painting your walls. I guess where I was trying to get to with that is the kind of priorities where people put these projects and things that need to be done around the house or whatever ahead of taking time to stretch or sit quiet or read, when those probably should be some of the bigger priorities, and making sure your head's on straight and clear so that you can be as productive as you can be. So with what you said about how running or golf or painting could be or it probably is meditative for some people. If you're going for a jog, listening to a podcast, probably not the same kind of thing.
No.
Maybe listening to music.
Maybe, depending on the music.
Yeah.
But more so it's that time just for yourself, where there's no intentional stimulation,
Right.
if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Okay. Now, yeah, I'm getting that a bit more. So, and if you can achieve that while doing an activity, great, good for you. And I guess, but that's why kind of the common practice is sitting still, no stimulation, and making sure you're not doing anything else or trying not to think about too much else. And so do you weigh them? Do you say, okay, if you can't sit and do this and meditate in that way, then try jogging? And, or I don't know, would you say one and the same, like get as many benefits as you would from sitting in a meditative state as you could jogging, if, without any audio stimulation kind of thing?
I think that's a really good question and a really good point to bring up. Again, I'll just say, I'm no authority on any which way to do anything.
I know, I'm just picking your brain.
Totally.
And that's why I got you here.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But I feel like there are many practices we can do in a day that are like routine. Mm-hmm. Right. And when you can turn those routines into rituals in a way that, you do them and they become a part of your well-being, that's really important to your well-being and to your personal growth. I think kind of placing that sort of intention on some of your daily activities can be like a gateway into you opening up to then taking time to sit still and just be and just breathe.
Yeah.
That's, I think, how I would look at that, if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. And as you're explaining to me, I'm like, it's probably not as important to rank these things as what's most beneficial and what's not. That probably speaks something about me more, where I'm like, okay, I need to know what the best way to do it is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I think that's most of us is like, okay, what's the best way to do this though? But I think I've really tried to, for the, past several years, just really be aware of the intention that goes into why I do what I do, no matter what it is. And easier said than done, I will say. I'm human, so there are times when I do things quite unconsciously. But often I find I really pay for it in certain ways. So having some sort of quality intention behind what you're doing really makes for sound personal work and growth.
Yeah. I want to segue kind of into the beginning of Christie Waitman.
The beginning.
Not the very, very beginning.
Good, because I don't remember the very, very beginning.
But what led us into where you are today in terms of yoga, meditation, these practices that you involve in your life? And I thought it'd be a good place to start in high school, where there's a big transitional period for everybody. There's so much going on, whether it's peer groups, good decisions, bad decisions, friends, grades, everything that seems very, very important at that time, which I don't know if all those things should be so important. But so what was the high school experience like for you? What were you interested in? How were those grades? Who were you? What was your peer group? Anything that you think relates to where you are today as a person.
Okay. I remember entering high school, very nervous, and then, no, very nervous.
And then you relaxed? No.
No, not at all.
Very nervous.
Yeah. And I think it just kind of, not that it escalated from there, but it shifted into becoming quite depressed. And I think that perhaps, looking back, I see that as that was maybe just my journey into growing into myself, was learning how to navigate those very deep emotional feelings, because I am a very sensitive person. And I think that was the beginning time that I started to have to navigate, those feelings. Mm-hmm. My grades in high school were okay, I suppose, a little above average, except when it came to math.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Not a mathlete?
No, definitely not. Actually, I had to do a math course just in my last semester here, last September semester, last year. And I swear it brought up like PTSD.
Oh, man.
I went back to this like really, really self-critical, unsure of myself, like lots of negative self-talk in that class. It was really interesting to endure the like anxiety and emotions I was having in this university class, because it took me back to that place in high school, which I will say that was kind of unfortunately my norm for, the 3 years of high school that I endured. Was I was very self-critical, very unsure of my place, unsure of my worth. And I don't exactly know where those feelings and thoughts came from. Like my family life has always been really wonderful, and I know that I'm very blessed to have had that experience growing up. Mm-hmm. But just something in myself was just not, I don't want to say it wasn't right. It was just a little challenging.
That's what I was going to ask is, looking back now, were there any specific experiences that led to these nerves and anxiety and then depression, or was it something that's just kind of a part of who you are? And that's kind of what you see it as more? You are a very sensitive, in tune, emotional person. I think it's both. Yeah. Of course, there are experiences like childhood traumas there's a spectrum when it comes to trauma. And on the spectrum, I would say mine are acute compared to, what other people might endure. Mm-hmm. But being, as some might say, overly sensitive, which I kind of resent a little bit. I don't think you can be overly sensitive. Right. But being really sensitive to things, I was affected by, kids being mean to me. Yeah. Or, there was a time that, and it wasn't, purposeful at all, but I was forgotten at school one time when I was in grade 2. And that has always stuck with me. And I internalized it for a long time. I internalized it as I'm not worth remembering. Wow. Right. And that's not the case at all. But that's how I internalized it. And that wasn't the first time something like that took place, where I, it was just like anytime something like that happened from that time when I was very little, it was just like, it was validation, like, oh, right, there it is. I'm not worth remembering. So there's a Simpsons episode about that. Dylan will remember very well. Yes, he will. But I think a lot of kids, probably most kids, go through these things. And I see a bit of it with Haven as well, where, kids are mean. Kids are mean to all kids. And most kids are mean to other kids in kid ways, right? That are innocent in of themselves, but different kids take those things different ways. Yeah. It really affects some kids, whereas another kid with the exact same experience is not as affected. Yeah. Yeah, which I guess brings us back to that. It's probably more so the people we are, rather than the experiences themselves. Yes. In that situation, I don't want to I don't want to label it that cut and dry, because obviously some experiences are much deeper, more traumatic. But these kind of everyday experiences, they can still, they change people. They change who you are, and depending on how sensitive you are, which I don't think you're overly sensitive. I think you're sensitive. I would consider myself quite sensitive as well.
Yeah.
I grew up with 3 sisters, so that's usually what I attribute it to, but I would think it's more so within myself. I am just a sensitive guy. I've always said it's because of my 3 older sisters, but I don't think it's
an easy cop out, Andrew.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'm just a sensitive guy. I'm going to stop saying the sisters thing.
Own it.
Own it. Yeah, overly sensitive.
I've often wondered as well, not to spend too much time back in my childhood here.
That's where it all started.
I know it's where it's all started, but so I was actually, my parents started me early in that I was a year younger than everybody else. And so just, being older now and taking classes on education and classes that are where they go into the psychology of brain development in children, I was that much further behind everyone in those classes, right? So like emotionally. So that I think really played a part in my inability to feel accepted, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. And probably trying to prove yourself like you are at the same level as these kids, but
yeah,
I could see that.
Yeah.
Haven's reading a book about that right now, actually.
Okay.
Her school sent a book home, and more so Jamie and I are reading it to her.
Yeah.
Something about a lemonade stand, and the kid was skipping a grade, and now she's going to be in the same grade as her brother. And so all the issues coming up with that.
Yeah.
It's really well written for like kids her age, and even Jaden's age, because
Yeah.
it's a lot about just siblings and,
Yeah.
wondering why is my brother being so mean to me? I didn't do anything. This kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And anyway,
That's awesome.
It is.
Yeah.
I've actually quite enjoyed reading it with her.
Good. It's nice when the parents can enjoy the books that their children have to read.
Yeah.
It's a little painful if it's not quite the case.
No. And Jaden's reading Harry Potter, so that's great too.
Okay,
right?
well, that's fun.
Yeah. So back to, I guess, kind of jumping back ahead to high school.
Yeah.
Were you, so all these nerves, anxiety coming along with you, and would you say you were noticed in a negative way, or did you mostly kind of go unnoticed, where you were saying you didn't really feel like you fit in? Was that brought to your attention in the way of bullying and such, or did you kind of just keep to yourself and let it stay
No,
that way?
I wasn't bullied in high school. Like I had I guess maybe you would call it like a core group of friends. There were 4 or 5 of us.
Okay.
And, there were times when I felt picked on a little bit by them. But I think there were also times, that, and I say I think, but I know where, I was doing that as well, right? It's just growing up, we're learning how to express ourselves, and it doesn't always come out in a loving way. But mostly I just started to feel really invisible, but also kind of wanted to be invisible.
Yeah.
So I floated around with a few different groups of friends, but just felt, kept people at arm's length. And I think that was where that really started for me, in keeping people at arm's length. And that's something that I still really struggle with now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
More so to protect yourself.
Yeah.
Because you feel like, or you were feeling like you're not deserving of love and attention.
And like if people really get to know me, then they're going to know that I'm not really worth it.
That's so backwards for sure. I'll say that right now. And so in high school, did you ever practice? Did you know what yoga was?
No, I didn't.
It wasn't around the house.
It wasn't. No.
And so when, I think that was kind of where we led into next, was where did yoga come in? Was it more towards college? Did you go to college right out of high school?
No, I took a year off,
Yeah.
but it was right out of high school. So I had graduated, and then it was just, I don't know, I want to say even within like weeks after that, or a month or two after that, that I kind of caught wind of this yoga thing.
Yeah.
And when something piques my curiosity, then I tend to go down the rabbit hole and like seek out as much information as possible. And so I just started, like exploring this, like, what is this? And, seeing what we associate as yoga, which is like these postures and this like movement practice. And I remember being really taken by that, and just how beautiful it looked. And I wanted to try it. It's like it called to me or something.
Yeah.
So I started to look for where it could be offered, here. And then I was lucky to find it.
Yeah.
So, but I will say now, and I've said this before in classes, I feel like if yoga was around, if I was aware of it, or it was available to me during my high school years, then I'm sure my ability to process my emotions and my feelings about myself and my depression and anxiety, I think the experience would have been a lot different.
Really?
Yeah,
And
definitely.
So finding yoga and through practicing and learning more and more about yoga is what you would attribute to kind of helping you through some depression, and you struggled with the eating disorder as well.
Yes.
And this came about through your time at university or after?
I know, I was trying to recall.
I guess the
That
timeline's not
timeline.
really that important.
No, I guess
more so
not.
just your
I had
journey
started,
to battling some of this big stuff that you've been through, and what helped most.
Totally. And I feel like with the disordered eating stuff, when I think back, like it definitely started a lot earlier than when it sort of manifested as something really, really detrimental.
Mm-hmm.
Because there were some instances that I can recall in high school and even before that where it was just this not so healthy relationship with food was coming up. But then I had already started practicing yoga when this whole thing started to sort of come to a head.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where I couldn't practice because I was going to classes, and I felt like I was going to pass out partway through the practice, and I just had no power, no strength, right? And so I actually like stopped going for a while, and that was when, the depression really set in even more. And it's such a layered thing, right? It's like they both feed each other.
Yeah.
So my parents recognized that I was doing better when I was practicing yoga regularly. And actually, I couldn't afford it for a while. So they helped me. They were like, you need to do this because this is really helpful for you. So that was sort of the key to me starting back up again, and then it becoming more of a tool in my toolbox to support my wellness.
Yeah. And now, safe to say, this mental health stuff, it's an ongoing battle.
Yeah, I don't think it ever goes away for anyone who identifies with that struggle. It's just something that's there that you have to be aware of, because if you aren't, it will take over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I'm just kind of calling myself out and thinking I'm trying to piece this puzzle together too perfectly for you, where it's like, oh, Christie went through high school. It wasn't good. Christie found yoga. It was good. It helped her. But then she went through these troubles with the eating disorder. So yoga wasn't helping, but then yoga helped again. And it's like, I'm trying to put the yoga practice up on this pedestal, which I know I should not do, in saying, okay, just people go do yoga and you'll be fine, like Christie.
Yeah.
It's not the case.
It's funny you say that, actually, because I think, at least from what I remember when I was really getting into the practice, was this I feel like it was this general belief that people had in that were like coming to these classes and workshops and trainings and stuff like we were all attending together as students, and like people would leave behind their their high paying jobs to become yoga teachers and stuff like that, and or not taking conventional medication to support them, even though that might be something they really need. Like, I don't need this, I have yoga. And so, yeah, like yoga, I don't know if it's like that anymore. It might be to some degree, but for a while it was like on this pedestal for, I think, majority of people. But it's like, no, it's not, the end all be all, nothing is. It's just been a really important tool that has helped me on my journey.
Yeah. And so then thinking a bit more, you have this great tool that was helping you. Something was still missing, eating away at you. What?
Literally.
Yeah. So looking back, can you see, and like I said, I know it's still a struggle. It is with everybody who deals with these things, but have you been able to kind of pinpoint, what was going on? What were these issues in your life that were leading to depression, anxiety, eating disorders? Again, experiences or something within yourself that you just hadn't quite figured out yet? Or can you speak to that a bit?
I think I can speak to that in terms of when I look back, and I try not to look back too deeply because that's something I'm very good at doing. But when I look back, and just with the work that I've done and the work that I need to continue to do, I really recognize that where things have been at their worst, my self-worth has been at its lowest. And like I said, there are little things that I can think of that contribute to that, but overall, I don't know exactly where that comes from. Yeah, self-worth, not having any.
Right.
And then, that being a piece of self-loathing and not seeing myself as, deserving of happiness or health or feeling good or content. And
so how do you change that negative self-talk? What are the practices and what, when you're at your best, what are you doing? What are you thinking about, or how are you thinking differently than when you're at your worst?
Well, I think it helps to know when I've been at my worst, like knowing what that feels like. I mean, and so I would like to kind of start by saying, even just really recently with the start of this pandemic thing, and everything being shut down as far as I was finished school by then, but, I couldn't teach classes. I had no work. So it was like, oh my God, like what? It was very triggering. And I realized that I still have a lot of work to do on things that I thought that I had healed in myself. Healed, I'm saying that with air quotes. But yeah, I realized like, fuck, it's still there. There's always work to be done. But I will say also that my turnaround time or my bounce back is a lot quicker than it used to be. Like I don't follow that thread of thoughts of like being pulled down. And I've also acquired more practices in self-kindness, which I know sounds cheesy. I really think it sounds cheesy, self-kindness and self-love. But that has been really, really important for me to work on.
I completely agree. And it doesn't sound that cheesy to me.
Okay.
I'm over that. I'm like, you need to practice this.
Yeah.
Because something else going through my head, I'm like, in terms of the self-worth and that kind of thing, you can get that from other people, or you can hear from other people what you think you want to hear or feel those things. if somebody is in love with you,
Mm-hmm.
if somebody's telling you, you're beautiful, you're so smart and so funny, these kind of things, that can come from someone else. But I don't think that helps the actual issue, right? And that's where the
No.
self-love and the self-kindness comes from. It's you need to differentiate that. Sure, it feels good to have someone saying those things about you and being there for you, helping take care of you, but it's completely different when it can come from within you. And so it is, it's something you need to practice. And what do some of those practices look like? Like good self-talk or
Yeah,
whatever.
definitely.
What is it?
Yeah, good self-talk is a tough one for me, but that's a really important one because I had this, I guess I want to say habit for a long time where I would I would see myself in the mirror or look at myself in the mirror and just like the words toward myself in my head were just like, I have never said anything like that to another person, yet I'm just like beating myself up so hard because I'm, in my eyes, not pretty enough, not skinny enough, not, lovable or whatever it might be, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just not blank enough.
Yeah.
So yeah, positive self-talk is a really important one. The physical yoga practice, the movement practice has been really important for me as well because I have to trust my body's abilities, and my body, I guess, in some ways has to trust me, my intention for, putting it through those purposeful stresses,
Mm-hmm.
right? To be stronger. So yeah, the yoga practice for me personally is one of those practices of self-love and acceptance.
Yeah, and would a part of that be kind of achieving different goals throughout yoga, different postures, being able to sit in something more comfortably? I was just trying to think of likening it to any kind of exercise where, set a goal for yourself. If you want to go run 10 kilometers,
Mm-hmm.
when you run that 10 kilometers, you're going to feel good about yourself.
Yeah.
Um,
I think it's, yes, probably. I struggle with goals, and especially if the goals are like, say ego driven.
yeah.
So if it's like you want to achieve some pose because it looks badass or whatever, like I would say, that goal could use some refining, maybe. But no, it's more just being in my body, to make friends with my body, if that makes any sense. That's what the physical practice has been for me. And I think that's why I hold it so dearly. And it's something that I get a little defensive about, just in terms of not my own practice, but when the yoga practice is seen as, physical fitness and, like it is, but it's so much deeper than that. And it's important to me because I've experienced that depth.
Yeah. And this kind of leads into one of your latest struggles, but more for like 5 years or so-ish, that you've been struggling with. You became a yoga teacher. You were teaching. Haven just got home, if anybody hears that yelling and screaming. And, this was, I'm assuming you were loving it. You were teaching a lot of classes. Short story, and then I'll let you take over. And then you started seeing a side of yoga in today's society that you didn't really like as much, and you've really struggled with that, in being that you are very in tune with the traditional side of yoga in its teachings and beliefs. And some of the stuff in today's society is more just a physical fitness thing, consumer related and making money for businesses. I want to liken it to, in terms of food, everyone would grow their own food or go hunting and feed their families. And then that slowly started changing. You would just get it from the grocery store. Now, even more than ever, it's fast food. You just go get a meal that's already made, you eat it, and you're done. Same as, whatever, if you needed like a wood shed built. You would go get some wood, you would go build it, you would do this. Whereas now you maybe don't even need a woodshed. You just flick on your heater or whatever. Or if you do need a woodshed, maybe you pay someone to do it for you, or you buy one that's already made and you just put it down and fill it with wood. It seems like that rapid acceleration of
convenience,
yes, has made its way into the yoga training or classes, and leading away from traditional yoga, which you seem to hold very dearly, and has done a lot for you. So where did that disconnect come from? What's going on there, and how do we try and steer it back the other way?
That's a good question. One of the things that I really thought about a lot is that, and this has come out with, the current status on truth and reconciliation. Okay, so different culture, yes, I know, but I think it's important to acknowledge that yoga comes from a time and a culture that is not ours, right? And so it's recognizing that and acknowledging that so that you're not appropriating it and taking pieces of it and turning it into profit in some way, if that makes any sense. I think in terms of convenience, the potency of the teachings has been almost completely, if not completely, taken out of the classes that are or have been offered. Not all of them, but I think a good majority. Last time we spoke, I mentioned that it all became about offering lunch hour, 30-minute, almost like micro practices. Mm-hmm. And there's value in that for sure. But in terms of actually getting somewhere, and that's not exactly the right phrasing, but for lack of better words this afternoon, you can't really go very deep in that amount of time. And when I say that, I mean physically, but I also mean otherwise, There's
yoga has a lot more to offer than what some people have been introduced to it as. Mm-hmm. Whereas a lot of people are introduced to yoga as, hey, this is cool exercise that I'm trying. Do you want to come do it? Let's, 30 minutes, lunchtime, like you said, get some exercise. And that of itself is a positive thing.
Absolutely.
And any form of exercise that you can get in, if you enjoy it, then keep doing it. I think, like I said, yoga has a lot more to offer than that, right?
Yeah. So when I first started yoga, so the first I would say at least 5 years of practicing yoga, which I practiced 5 years, before I actually took a teacher training. Mm-hmm. And so within that time, it was sort of reaching a height in North America, at least. And there were still a lot of pieces intact, I feel like, if that's fair to say. In my experience, the teachings were still intact and informing the movement practice, which may not necessarily be traditional, because the physical movement practice isn't necessarily traditional. The word asana means pose. It also means seat. And so in classical yoga, in many forms of traditional yoga, that just meant sitting for meditation, so a seat. But as it evolved with hatha yoga, here we know it mostly as hatha yoga, but it's hatha yoga, which means force or forceful. It's very intense. And I think I'm going off topic now.
No, that's just fine. If it's about yoga, we're good.
Okay. So where is I going with that?
Hatha yoga is more the forceful...
The movement practice. Yeah. So we can come back to that in a more succinct way later.
Yeah.
I'll go back to what we were talking about with seeing that shift in studios nowadays. So in those 5 years that I was practicing, I was exposing myself to lots of workshops and classes that were being offered by teachers from the States who were coming up to Canada. And that was a really wonderful experience for me all times, because the way that they offered these classes was, like I said earlier, informed by many of the traditional teachings that go along with it. And then it just seems to, over the years, have gotten to the point where not enough people were interested in that. They wanted the movement practice because they were getting fit. And there was this whole lifestyle that was very marketable.
Right, because in today's society, physical fitness and appearance is much more valuable.
Yeah, and so that was
spiritual.
Like I remember watching Lululemon rise, because I was into this even before Lululemon. So, like they created this brand that had this whole lifestyle attached to it, and that was yoga. And so it just kind of, I know that wasn't the only piece, but it was definitely a big part of this shift in like, oh, well, it's really cool to do yoga, to say you do yoga, to say you teach yoga. And then it just seems to have turned into like, okay, well, most people are uncomfortable with these big words like meditation or transcendence or,
when that's at the root of
mysticism and stuff like that, and chanting and, kirtan. These were just like, what is that? This is like witchcraft.
And these are things that would be kind of in place in traditional yoga, these words and practices.
Yeah.
So not so much anymore, and that might weird people out. So instructors are focusing more on just the physical teachings within these studios.
Yeah, and I feel like, again, from my experience, I feel like what started to happen was, and I guess there's some backtracking to do, but I think business people started catching on to the fact that there's a lot of money in this. So let's open studios, because, build it and they will come.
Yeah.
And so with that, it became very much this corporate landscape and model. And so it was like, no, we're just going to offer this because this is going to attract more people. We have to leave the other stuff out, kind of thing. And it just felt like slowly that other stuff was slipping away because nobody had time for it. Nobody was interested in it. They just wanted to be moved.
And if you incorporate these weird things like meditation and other things you were saying, that might freak people out and they might not come back.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because I think too, because there's potential for them to open up to sides of themselves that they're not ready to see. And some people might hear that and say, well, that sounds pretty like woo-woo to me. But I've had some really profound experiences in studio settings where, the whole space was held by this practice that included, some contemplation in the beginning. And within that contemplation, sometimes there was mantra or, so chanting mantra, or more so singing mantra with a large group of people. And that taking anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes. And then the movement practice would start, and it would start based on that initial offering of contemplation. So yeah, that made the practice much richer and much more of a personal experience for everybody in the room. Everyone was doing their own practice, having their own experience, but together. And that was, there's nothing like that when you've experienced it before.
And so this has greatly affected you as a teacher of yoga.
Yeah.
Not so much your practices. You will do mostly on your
those-
own in the way that you choose to do it. But your teaching was being altered in a way that you were not as comfortable with to try and fit into what businesses or today's society was looking for in yoga. If you have a classroom full of students that you don't really know, and maybe the easiest way to get them to come back is to not try and connect that deeply with them. It's more so to do physical. You think most of these people here are probably here for the physical exercise. So let's give them that and not overstep. Is that kind of a battle that was starting to happen and you were not very comfortable with?
Yeah, definitely. The other piece of that was I felt like the dynamic shifted, like from this, like using the studio space like a classroom. Like that was how I always experienced it as a student, was like there was a teacher and a room full of students and you were there to learn. And the teacher like actually taught you things. They didn't just move you through shapes. You learned something too. Like everything in the practice, every posture was purposeful. It was there for a reason. And there was, a teaching or a story behind why, this particular class was created or chosen. It was like, so I started to feel this shift from teacher student classroom dynamic to like, I'm at the service of the customer coming in. And I didn't like that because that wasn't, it just didn't work for, teaching something from not an authentic place, because they can teach authentically, but it just took away that space.
Yeah. Well, and really all this speaks to is how meaningful yoga is to you. Like, and I can see that, and I think people can hear that by how passionately you talk about it, and that you do struggle with this. And so, I mean, you haven't been teaching for a while now, mostly due to COVID stuff. Are you trying to get back into it? I know you've also landed in a new job that we're going to talk about soon. But as far as teaching yoga, what's next for you? Is that still something you're trying to do? You still want to do it?
Yeah, I've recovered from this last burnout phase.
Right, good. And everybody needs breaks. That's fine. You're going to burn out again. And
exactly.
Just recognize it quickly and take the time you need.
Exactly. And recognize the tools that you've acquired so that your bounce back is quicker and stronger.
Yeah.
But anyways, yes, I want to be teaching again. And there was a short period of time at the end of the summer after I did teach some classes where I was like, oh, this is actually kind of nice. I've been teaching basically every evening of the week for like 10 years, 11 years. So it was like, oh, this is kind of nice to just chill out in the evening. But yeah, in the last couple of months, I've definitely had those rumblings again of like, or like longing to be able to hold space for people, because I've also found that through teaching, I've built some really, really meaningful relationships with the people that have come to my classes, and they've continued to come, and I've known some of these people now for 11 years or longer. Because I think part of being a teacher of any kind is like getting to know the people you're working with, and making them or helping them to feel like they're valued and they're seen. And that's what I've always used the yoga classroom for. Yeah.
And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who really miss the classes and miss, just being in the room with you and gaining some of this knowledge that you want to share. And the business side of it, which is probably the last thing you probably wish you didn't have to deal with this, right?
Yeah.
That's where this is coming from. Like, I can see that you genuinely would love to just teach, people who want to learn and not worry about all this.
Yeah.
So it could be a good thing that you've fallen into this new job, which financially will help take care of you. And the yoga side can be hopefully more organic, traditional, whatever you want to say. And so you don't need to worry about filling your class with 30 people who maybe you aren't going to be able to connect with so deeply. Maybe rather have 5 people there that you are connecting with, and you can help them even more so if it wasn't in a big class. Anyway, that's besides the point. But so what's this new job? And where did it come from? I'm very happy for you because I know you're very into it.
Thank you. I am, because I've really, I feel like I've recognized some similarities to yoga and my journey through practicing yoga. And it's offered me a lot of opportunity to practice being kind to myself. So this new job is with Stalo Health Services. So I am the current overdose prevention and education network coordinator, and I am still learning what exactly that is.
Yeah. And it's obviously a big job you've been tasked with to work with your team about. And you were chosen for this job more because of who you are, the type of person you are and what you believe, and what is so obvious to everyone who interacts with you, that you would be awesome for this job, rather than the education you have, the tools, the teachable things, because you will be taught those things and you're a quick learner, so you will learn them. But you were hired because of these unteachable characteristics that you have of love, compassion, a good heart. Is that fair to say?
Sure, thank you.
You can, yes, there you go. Well, and I know I'm not the one saying it. It was the Stalo Health Services. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, who said that and picked you for this job. And you were one of the first big things in your job was putting together this documentary, which I really want to encourage people to go and check out, to help raise awareness of drug overdose and prevention. What's the title of the documentary in Halklemelem?
Halklemelem?
Yeah.
Eilech Tal Ta'ala.
Right. And in English?
Calling of the Heart.
That's right. And it's an amazing 10-minute documentary.
10 minutes of your time.
Quickly give us a rundown of what it is and what we hope to see from this documentary and spreading it around.
Yeah, so our community and the province, the world at large is experiencing high rates of overdose and opioid addiction. And so what this film, the intention behind this film is to generate awareness and to spark conversation, hopefully among circles of people who wouldn't necessarily, start talking about what's happening, or let alone, contribute to helping in some way. And what we wanted to do with it was humanize the person struggling with addiction or at higher risk of overdose. And so I think that's what we did. Actually, I know that's what we did. We spent a lot of time going back and forth on getting all the elements right in the film so that, we could pull on those heartstrings.
One of my favorite parts that's really stuck out to me was the elder who was there speaking about how in an Indigenous community, if someone comes to ask for help, they're held in the highest regard above most everyone else, in that they had the courage to come and ask for help, and that makes them, one of the most important people in that community. And I think that's a great message to try and get across to people.
And then don't you scratch your head and think, why isn't that the norm?
Yeah.
Well,
duh. If someone needs help, then they're really important. They need help.
Well,
so let's,
and that they're asking,
and that they're asking,
that they're vocalizing. I'm struggling. Like that's, for not to go backwards in our conversation, but for myself, I was too afraid to ask for help when I was struggling with my stuff, because didn't want to disappoint people. I didn't want to scare people. I just didn't want anyone to know that I was struggling.
Yeah.
So yeah, to ask for help is so valuable.
And I think so raising awareness for this, opening up that conversation, getting people talking about it, thinking about it, so that maybe they recognize it, whether it's within themselves that they need help or within a neighbor or a friend who they might not have caught on to before, but with, information and being more aware, you might catch on to something where you think, well, this person might need help. Maybe I can be there for them. There's many different ways, and they are laid out in the documentary nicely. And just reaching out and saying you're there for someone without judging them and saying,
I think that's the key, and that's what we as humans all struggle with is our judgment of other people, and our judgment of ourselves. I'm the biggest critic of myself. We all are. And so, it's not adding to that by judging someone. And I want to say too, with the film, the other end of the hope is that people who do, use substances, whether, they're aware that they're opioids or opiates, or whether it's like a stimulant they're taking, like to just be more cautious of where they're sourcing their supply from.
Right. Because now more than ever, you don't know exactly.
There's such a poisonous supply out there.
Yeah.
So it's like if you're using some sort of stimulant, like really think twice about it.
Yeah. And look into a way of using safely.
Yeah.
Whether it's with a friend or there's an app now, you check in before you do it, and then you check in 15 minutes later or whatever to let whoever know that you're okay.
Yeah.
You've done it, and now you're okay. So there's different tools that are coming into the world that will hopefully help prevent more overdoses, and it's because it is happening, and now more than ever with this pandemic, people feeling even more alone. And
it's really escalated since the pandemic began.
So please go and check out the documentary. Share it on your Facebook or social media. Where's the easiest place to find it?
The webpage for it, which is www.callingoftheheart.ca.
Cool. Okay, that's nice and easy. Now let's get to a couple of these kind of fun questions to finish things off here.
Okay.
The first one I want to ask is a new one that I haven't asked anyone on here. If you had $10,000 that you needed to spend in the next 24 hours, what would you buy?
What would I buy?
Like, this is the selfish part where I just get to learn more about you because of what you would selfishly buy for $10,000.
And after all this yoga talk.
The complete contradiction.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I have a love for fashion and shoes.
I really like these overalls you're wearing. They're cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you would buy clothes?
I would buy
shoes.
clothes. Yeah, I would go on a shopping spree.
Yeah, a few different outfits.
A conscious shopping spree.
Yes, zero waste.
Maybe waste.
Organic clothing.
I would buy what I like. Well, yes, that's an element. But more so not just buying for the sake of buying, but putting, at least a little thought into what I'm buying.
Good. I know. It's a good thing of how almost awkward that answer was. Because you don't really want to do this. And so then, what if you had to give away that $10,000, not to friends or family?
I would donate it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Anywhere specifically? Yeah. Okay. Yes, you have to pick somewhere specific.
Okay, somewhere specific. I can't remember the name.
Oh yeah. Okay. Or just describe the organization.
Yeah, I would donate it to the Cyrus Center.
Okay.
I believe they provide beds for youth on the street.
This lines up well with your new job. I understand that. because I would assume a lot of drug use comes from trying to escape your harsh reality of your living situation.
Yeah, and feeling like you don't have anywhere to go.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, giving people places to go, even just to sleep somewhere warm and dry. Yeah, that's great. That's a great cause. Now, if you could teach everyone in the world one thing, and I did ask this once to Haven on the last episode. She was going to teach everyone to drive a car, so don't say that.
Okay, I won't say that.
If you could teach everyone in the world one thing, what would it be?
If I could teach everyone in the world one thing, I would teach them how to drive. No, I'm just kidding. I would teach them how to breathe.
How to breathe.
How to breathe. Because I think once we all learn how to breathe, we'll be able to move through our day more peacefully.
And this is good place to, not that we're ending right now, but come full circle how we started talking about meditation. And I'm guessing that's a big part of breathing and meditation go hand in hand. Or the benefits would be similar if you learn how to breathe properly. Now, to me, breathing is, you know how to do it. You do it. Everyone does it. They must do it pretty well because they're living. They haven't stopped breathing. Yeah. But you're saying there's probably a lot more to it, to breathing in a efficient way. Is that a good way of putting it?
Yeah.
Or is that just part of it, breathing efficiently?
I think that's part of it.
Yeah.
So in terms of yoga, there's the notion of this quality called prana. Mm-hmm. And prana is like it's life force. I think in traditional Chinese medicine, it's qi. So it's that same sort of like quality of life. And so in some of the yoga teachings, it said that prana rides the breath, is on the breath. And so when you harness your breath, you strengthen your life force. And so by doing that, then, you increase your vitality and you increase, maybe even increase the length of your life, So it's just, you want to increase your vitality.
Now, when you're breathing very hard, very rapidly, quickly, your body's probably having a harder time working properly. In a very simple term, if you're taking nice, deep, relaxed breaths, your body is probably very comfortable in working optimally. So I could see how that would lengthen a life. If you think about going through life with a heart rate of 180 beats per minute, then I don't think you're going to live that long.
If you think about it in terms of the nervous system, and anyone who loves to geek out about body systems, learn about the nervous system.
Who doesn't?
Who doesn't? Yeah. So if you think about it in those terms, then when you breathe deeply, like it's studied that your nervous system goes back down. Mm-hmm. And so when your nervous system is not like ramped up and you're not just like this like anxious ball of energy, then everything else has space to relax, to like do what it needs to do efficiently.
Like big processes like I'm guessing digestion and brain function and
heart function. Like look at hypertension, high blood pressure type things.
Right. Like
breathing really support, like a breathing practice, a dedicated breathing practice really supports bringing your blood pressure down. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so at the very simplest teaching, we could take a few deep breaths every now and then throughout the day.
Exactly.
Like someone, I forget who it was, but one of their main lessons was before you get out of bed, just take 5 deep breaths and think of something you're grateful for. That part's a bit different, but also very helpful.
Yes.
But just, before you get out of bed, take 5 deep breaths. And I was thinking about this the other day when I was stretching. I was like, when you actually think about it, it takes a bit of time. You sit there and take 10 deep breaths, but not that much time really. And how often has anyone actually done that? Like for me, I barely ever even do that. But the benefits, which I don't know the science behind, are very proven. And it's something that I would encourage all of you guys listening to just do once in a while. Do you know much of the science behind it?
No,
I guess we just kind of talked about a bit of it with the nervous system.
Yeah, like I study up on it when I can, but off the cuff I can't.
No.
Like I don't feel comfortable.
And I
speaking in terms of like stats and stuff like that. But I definitely, I do take the time to learn about it because it helps me understand it if I'm going to teach people to breathe. Yeah. Whether that's I teach everybody in the world or a room of people. Yeah. But I think for many people, they have to know that like scientific piece to actually like be open to it.
It's a good thing sometimes and it's a bad thing sometimes. For me, I'm totally more of like a feel guy.
Yeah, me too.
I'm just like, okay, it feels good, so I'm gonna keep doing it.
Yeah.
I'm not as angry
Logic,
anymore.
schmogic.
Yeah, but a lot of more people will do it if it's backed up by science.
Yeah,
which obviously, yes, very important.
Yeah, and I think the thing to consider or think about along with it, if you're considering taking up a breathing practice or meditation practice, is that there's no instant gratification with it. You're not going to have like one session of breathing or meditation or whatever it is and then be like, oh, like I'm way better now. Like you won't notice it like that. It's more like you notice the benefits of those dedicated practices when you're no longer doing them. And you're like, why am I so like anxious right now? And it's like, oh yeah, I stopped doing that. I stopped that conscious breathing practice for like 2 minutes or whatever it is.
Yeah. Okay, well, there you go, guys. Breathe more. Breathe deeply. If you need lessons, contact Christie. But we should direct to the website in case anybody wants to say hi or look for when you're going to be teaching classes again.
Yeah, you can learn a little bit about me. So at www.christielucia.com.
Same as Instagram, right?
Same as Instagram, Christie Lucia Yoga, I think. Lucia. It's my middle name. So.
Okay, cool. And I'll tag you in all this.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming and talking with me about this and sharing your knowledge. And it was a lot of fun. Thanks for doing it twice.
Yes, thank you for having me again.
Good. Okay. Well, take care. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. And thanks for listening, everybody.
It's the Andrew Christopher Show. With Andrew Christopher, your host. It's the Andrew Christopher Show. But really we call it the AC Show. Yeah, we really call it the AC Show. Really call it the AC Show. AC Show.
It's the AC Show with AC, your host. Check it out.